Thank you very much, Clara. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this symposium we have today. I'm sure you will enjoy it because Clara has put together a wonderful program. So we really thank you for opening up this collaboration with the Center for Tourism. We have been, to a large extent, a sleeping partner. Dr. Mavelia has prepared the whole program and organized everything in a wonderful mix of Spirito Italiano and Deutsche Gründlichkeit. So it's well organized and it's a very exciting program in my view. And we are also very happy that the Institute for Cultural Entrepreneurship has chosen Center for Tourism as the first partner outside Berlin. We think it's a sign of appreciation and that we are on the same word, in the same kind of spirit, thinking about interesting areas in the same way. So I would like to share my time between presenting the Center for Tourism for you and also give some of my personal reflections on the theme of today, ethics and travel. And first of all, about the Center for Tourism. If we have the honor of being the partner of the Cultural Institute for Entrepreneurship, you probably wonder what is the Center for Tourism? It's been around for 30 years. So Clara said I was one of the founders. It's not exactly true, but I've been living with the Center for Tourism, which has had different names along the 30 years. Today it's Center for Tourism. But all the time, all the 30 years, we have been enjoying this collaboration with the industry, the school, and also we had government grants for our research. I would like to talk about three things I think we have achieved. It started out with an undergraduate program, and that was about 30 years ago, which became very well known and very attractive. So it was more difficult for the students to be admitted to the hospitality program than to the other programs here at the School of Business, which was an honor for us, and it also had the effect that we got very good students, and many of the students we had 30 years ago are today very successful in the industry, and some are here doing research still. So that was a good start with the undergraduate program. That undergraduate program is closed down now, and it was followed by a master program. It was an international master program that attracted students from all over the world, all continents except Antarctic, and we had a great time. And Elif, who was one of the teachers, is here today. I'm happy to have you here. She was teaching law, so it was a very broad program, including both law and economics and everything in between, like economic geography and cultural geography. That was a good program, I would say. In one ranking, it was ranked number 17 in the world. You can have many thoughts about rankings. It's not always an exact science, but still we were number 17, and we were very proud of that. So if I talk about the undergraduate program and the master program as two achievements, the third one would definitely be the research, which started already 30 years ago and been going on continuously. And we had our areas where we have focused, and one area is event studies, another area is destination development, and Professor Lena Mossberg, who will join us a bit later today, she has developed the experience economy and experience of tourism, and she has come very far in that area, and I think she's the most interesting researcher in Sweden or Scandinavia in the area of experiences. In the destination development area, we had recent success with Dr. Lindström, Kristina Lindström, who is here today, Erik Lundberg, and Mia Larsson. So they have developed, they've been thinking about destination development with a focus on sustainability. And they also got a prize recently for excellent collaboration with the industry, which is, I think, very useful if you are working with destination development, is that you also have good contacts with people working in the area. We have also been developing the ideas about experiences by trying to put a value on experiences. And John Armbrecht, who is now the director of the Center for Tourism, but he couldn't come today, and myself, I'm also interested in this area. So we've been measuring the value of cultural institutions and events, trying to understand what value is created. So that was briefly what Center for Tourism has been doing for the last 30 years, and we are looking forward to continue this. And we're also looking forward to continue the master program, because at the moment it's resting, so we haven't had any admissions recently, but I'm sure the school cannot ignore that gemstone for long. They will probably brush it up soon and launch the program again. It has to do with the difficulty of attracting international students now with the new situations with foreign students having to pay fees. But I think in the long run it will come back and blossom again. Now some of my reflections around ethics and travel. Me being an economist, I feel, I shouldn't say uncomfortable, but it's a bit unusual for me to talk about ethics. And you may wonder what is an economist going to say about ethics? Has he really got anything to say? And I think that's a pity, and that's a problem, really. So I want to spend some time thinking about what is the problem? Why are not economists regarded as ethical researchers primarily? Because in my mind, it is an ethical discipline. It's dealing with ethics. But I refer to a definition of economics, which goes like this, that it is to create the maximum utility for the resources we have. It's a one-liner, I think you could memorize it, to create the maximum utility for the resources we have. And that's a we statement, so we should do it together as a society, create the maximum utility. But there is one problem with that, and it's one word. It's the word utility. I think only economists have been thinking really deeply on what does it mean, utility. For most of us, I think utility means something that is useful or practical, instrumental, which I don't think is the correct meaning. Utility was launched as this definition. It goes back to the utilitarian philosophers. And they were really thinking about how could we create a society as good as possible. And they were thinking in we terms. How can we make a society that is the best for all of us? How can we use our resources to create most utility. So utility for them, I imagine, was not money, definitely not money. It was much more than creating practical things, building machinery. It also involved feelings and creating happy people. That's my interpretation of it. So the first thing with the word utility, I would like to replace it. And it has been replaced. So many people think about economics as how to create as much money as possible for the resources we have. And you probably understand that I would not agree with that interpretation, but many do. So I think that is one of the roots of the problem, that economics is not always regarded as an ethical discipline, because people understand it as how can we create as much money as possible for the resources we have. And money is a way of measuring utility, but it's like a rubber band. It's not an exact measure of utility, and it can be very inexact, and it can lead us on the wrong track, as I think it does when finance people are talking about economics. They are along the wrong track. I would like to use the word value rather. So create the maximum value for the resources we have. Would that solve the problem? Not necessarily. I would like to illustrate it with an example, and that will be a very economic way of explaining it, because I'm going to take you to an isolated island. That's what economists normally do. They say person A and person B, they live on an isolated island, and then they try to explain economic mechanisms that way. So I would not take A and B, not two persons to that island. I would send 12 of them. And I suggest we turn this into a reality show, like Robinson. We tell the 12 participants that you should create the maximum amount of value for the resources you have. And what resources do you have in that island? Well, there are lots of roses. There are lots of wild rabbits. There's a beautiful beach, and there's also regular transport to and from the island. So we send the 12 adventurers away together with 5 camera teams that will be following them 24 hours a day and make it into a reality show. How do you think they would create value now with the resources? Roses, rabbits, a beach, and they also had transport. I don't know what you're thinking, but I'm afraid that some of you think, okay, they could harvest the roses and send them with the regular transport and sell it. Maybe some of you think that they could create a rabbit farm that would work very efficiently, and they could export rabbit meat. Or they could use the beach to develop tourism. Did anyone think like that? I hope not. Because that's not really creating value. What's the value for the 12 inhabitants on the island if they can export roses, export rabbit meat, and have tourists coming to the beach? Not much value, I would say. Of course, they would need to catch some rabbits for their survival. But other than that, I think they should just learn from the rabbits, study the rabbits, they should smell the roses. That creates value. And they should take a long day off at the beach and enjoy a swim and the sun. That's creating value. So what I'm aiming at here is that even if you use the value that I suggest you to use, it can go wrong because value has also been contaminated by economists. Some of you still think that value is creating income, but it's not. It's creating well-being, being happy, enjoying life. That's value to me. And if you understand value like that, I think that you can regard economics as a somewhat ethical discipline. And that's what I would like to say, that it's one word that creates a problem when you are suspicious about economics being an ethical discipline. And it's the word utility. Don't replace it by money. I hope you don't, because that's not a good measure of value. And if you replace it by value, which I suggest, just make sure that you understand value as well-being and not as somewhat similar to money creating value. What about ethics and travel then? Well, I think it helps as well, because when you talk about tourism and travel, and when you do research in the area, you try to understand the value of experiences. And as I mentioned before, Professor Mossberg is dealing with experience value and experience of food tourism, where Sandia, our doctoral student, is also working to understand the experiences and the value of the experience. So dealing with tourism and travel, we come closer to what I think is a good understanding of utility and value. And one area which I also mentioned before is John Armbrecht and myself. We are doing research in the area of cultural institutions and the value created by cultural institutions. And then we are not talking about revenues like entrance fees. We are talking about the value people experience at the museum or at a festival. So those are my personal reflections. But I would also like to say that one case study where we have learned a lot about value has been a collaboration we had with Way Out West, where we have looked at the participants, the audience to the festival, and how they experience the festival and the value they experience. And I'm very happy to have got in contact with Niklas in that area, because Niklas understands what value is. He's a businessman, but still he understands that if you do not create value, there's no long future in business. And that's also a point. There's not really any conflict between understanding value the way I think you should and good business. Because as you will understand from Niklas' presentation now, by thinking about what your customers want, what they value, you also create loyalty and you create a customer base that you can rely on in the long run. So let me end my presentation like this, that I think we can talk about ethics of travel. We can talk about ethics of economics if we understand economics the way it was meant to be. Because mind you, in the 18th century, with the utilitarian philosophers Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, they meant this. They meant we can create a society that is as good as possible for all of us if we use our resources in the right way. So once again, welcome to this day, and thank you, Clara, for having organized it. And then I welcome Niklas Lundell from Way Out West to speak about Way Out West. Thank you very much.